Good afternoon to you. Mark Stout of HurricaneTrack.com here. Time for the Hurricane Outlook and discussion. It is Friday the 7th of October 2022. The big story here will be Julia as it moves across the southwest Caribbean Sea and towards Nicaragua, bringing a lot of rain, especially after it makes landfall to several countries of Central America. We'll focus on that. We'll also take a look at the MJO. That's at the very end of today's update. What might we be looking for in terms of the pattern as we get towards the last third of the month? We're still in the first third, but yes, we're always looking ahead. All right? Hey, look, this Friday is certainly a lot better than last Friday when we had Ian coming ashore up here in the Carolinas. This weekend, today, and into the weekend, going to be very, very nice. Lots of drying out to be had. In fact, it dumped a lot of rain, the ghost of Ian, in New Jersey, and then all of the areas here in the southeast, including Florida, can really begin to dry out, and especially those in Florida that are still dealing with so much in the aftermath of Ian. A prime weekend to pick things up and try to put things back together again. But we do have Julia, and at least for U.S. concerns, it is going to stay to the south, but that's not good news for our friends over here, first along the coast of Nicaragua, and then eventually to some of these countries down here inland from there in Central America. So looking at the close-up, what we call the true color shot here from Tropical Tidbits, center of circulation right in here somewhere, exposed due to stronger upper level winds. We call that shear. It's running out of time technically because it's headed to this direction right over here, but this expanse of open water, a lot can happen in the next 2 days or so before this makes landfall in Nicaragua. And if it develops that inner core better and everything gets lined up, remember we saw that with Ian. Once everything became untilted and everything got aligned, Ian took off, and the same thing should happen here with Julia. Nevertheless, that's just speaking purely from an intensity perspective, the low pressure and the wind speed, and a lot gets focused on that. I think we are just sort of inclined to look at those extremes. How low is the pressure? How high is the wind? And what's the category? But then you need to look at the whole thing and go, well, you know what? That whole area is just one gigantic heat engine creating a lot of rainfall, torrential rainfall, especially down there in the deep tropics, and all of that is going to move in towards Central America, where there is high terrain and people live on those hillsides and mountainsides, and the flash flooding and mudslides and the rivers that get swollen and out of their banks. That can be horrific. It really can. So we need to pay attention to that too, not just the wind and the pressure and what category it is. Rain is an impact. So here we go. This is the stats here from the Hurricane Center from the 2 p.m. intermediate advisory. It's on the low side in terms of wind speed, 40 miles per hour, pressure at 1,002. The wind will go up, the pressure will go down as this does strengthen, of course. Looking at it on our interactive tracking map, this is the path it's supposed to take over the next couple of days, making landfall as a Category 1. That is at least the official prediction and the forecast. It won't surprise me if it's a little bit stronger than that, maybe makes it in as a 100-mile-per-hour hurricane. We'll have to wait and see. It does have that opportunity, though, over the next couple of days to strengthen. Again, so much is going to depend on the inner core. How fast can the inner core develop and everything align, and then it can take off over the fairly warm waters here of the southwest Caribbean. But just looking at the terrain, you can see that in the background of the map here, this relief that we call that in here in geographic terms. Yes, those are mountains, especially away from the coast. This is your more coastal plain area. But all of this right through here, you get into this mountainous area all through western Nicaragua, Honduras, El Salvador, and certainly Guatemala. And the remnants of this, even after landfall there, they don't stop at the coast. You know, I think we know that, but a gentle reminder and sometimes a harsh reminder from time to time, all of this region is going to experience a lot of rain, and there are people down there, and they will be impacted. And so, yes, this will be a big deal for those folks. Looking at the model guidance on the whole, pretty tightly clustered envelope right through the first couple of days. And then there starts to become some divergence in the modeling. The envelope spreads out a little bit. A majority of the guidance, though, does get the system close enough to the southern Bay of Campeche up here that maybe some of that remnant energy tries to make a comeback. That is 4 to 5 days plus out in time. We will just have to wait and see how far north it tracks after landfall, how defined the center is, the low-level what we call vorticity center, etc., the lower part of the atmosphere. That part of the puzzle is still very murky, so to speak, because this mountainous terrain in here is definitely going to disrupt that low-level vorticity. So we'll just wait and see. Not out of the realm of possibility that we do have some regeneration here in the Bay of Campeche, but we'll wait and see if that happens before we worry about it too much. Looking at the ECMWF, this is from the 12Z run today, and this is that bottom part of the atmosphere that I talk about, the 850 millibar layer, or about 5,000 feet up. And that's the vorticity signature right there. It looks fairly healthy in the model. The model has a pretty good handle on it. And as you can see, we move this out into time, 24 hours out. This is tomorrow morning, and then finally Sunday morning. So 48 hours from now, well-defined, and it does make landfall there in Nicaragua. And then track that area. You can see some of the energy there certainly tangled up over Central America. That's a lot of rain. It's going to be pulling in moisture from the Pacific. It's also going to try to pull in moisture from the Caribbean. It is a process in the atmosphere, a physical process. It is going to try to maintain itself. It's not a living being, but it is a physical process in the atmosphere that wants to sort of reach its maximum potential if it can. It is a very interesting and complicated process where the heat engine is trying to keep going. So even over land, you can track that vorticity signature. And if we move it on out to 96 hours, and then finally by day 5, yes, some of that energy does get into the Bay of Campeche. And then just to look ahead a little bit, day 6, there's a big cold front that's going to be coming, and whatever's left of it could get drawn north. That will mostly be in the form of deep tropical moisture, so maybe, just maybe, some heavy rain concerns here for the Gulf Coast. This is still 6 and then finally 7 days away. I mean, the Euro does try to kick it up again into a definable tropical cyclone, so we're going to have to watch this. That's what I'm saying. It's not over yet. That would be pushed ahead of the cold front that's coming. This is a week out. This is 7 days out. We don't want to get too concerned with it just yet, but that is the signature right there of a strong cold front coming in that scoops up those remnants and re-energizes it just a little bit, especially if it's moving with the flow. So we've got to keep a couple of eyes on this. We're not done yet, and this is just the next week or so. What about out into the future? Well, the Madden Julian oscillation now starting to amplify out of the null phase and the general mean of the ensemble there. This is the JMA, Japanese Meteorological Agency, has it amplifying just a little bit through the maritime continent region into the West Pacific, with just the first inkling of a signature that gets this into phases 8 and 1 and so forth towards the end of the month. So even after Julia and whatever might or might not happen in the Bay of Campeche or the Gulf of Mexico, we still have another window of opportunity, I do believe, for something to try to get going in the western part of the Atlantic Basin at the last third of the month. That is why hurricane season goes through the end of November. You know, we get into October, we tend to think things will start calming down. There can still be impacts, even though water temperatures are gradually cooling off. So a lot to watch through the weekend, certainly for our friends in Central America first, and then we will take it day by day to see what kind of energy might be left over in the Bay of Campeche and beyond. All right? All right, that is it from me for today. Have a great weekend ahead, everybody. Thanks, as always, for giving me a bit of your time. I do appreciate it very much. Don't forget, on YouTube, come on, subscribe to the channel. Why not hit the notification button, like the video, share it. Let's help grow this even more. We grew a lot during Ian, and that is wonderful. So let's keep it going up, shall we? It only helps everybody. All right, I'm done. Let's get this online for you. Again, have a great weekend ahead. I'll be back, of course, with my morning updates and the hurricane outlook and discussions in the afternoon, since we do have a very active system down there. So with that, I'll bid you farewell for today. I am Mark Sudduth, HurricaneTrack. I'll talk to you again tomorrow morning.